career. She's got a great book, Lead to Win, many others. You'll see some there. She's going to sign some later, so that's a great opportunity for all of us. And in her other life, come on, we're going to add to this. In her other life, Carla is a singer who has sold out concerts at Carnegie Hall and the Apollo Theater, and released 4 gospel CDs, unceasing. And so please help me in bringing a warm Houston and Rice University welcome to Carla Harris.
Rodriguez for that. And good evening, Rice family, friends, and guests. It is really an honor and a privilege to be here. And again, I just want to thank Danielle and Jan for all of their hard work, and Mariah, who's gone back and forth and making sure that the word got out. As these ladies know, there are few things that I enjoy more than talking about what I like to call Carla's pearls. As you heard the D, my hard-earned and hard-learned pearls after being a woman on Wall Street as of this past summer for 35 years. Thriving in the seat that you sit in or the seat that you aspire to sit in. And let me give you a little background on each of these books. Expect to Win was my first book. And I've traveled all over the world sharing those pearls, and people ask me all the time, why are you so honest about everything that happened in your career? Why do you give all of those pearls? And I'll tell you that when I walked out of the lauded halls of Harvard Business School in 1987, I embraced this whole concept of a meritocracy. Every company that came to the graduate school said, all you need to do is be smart and work hard, and you'll go straight to the top. It didn't take me long, about 2 months into my career, and I realized that that was an incomplete success equation. There are so many other things that really inform your success equation, and that's what the Pearls and Expect to Win are all about. The Pearls is Strategize to Win. That book was motivated because you don't tell the same story to every buyer. If you're trying to get a job in newspaper, then you need to talk about how creative you are, what great writing skills you have, what a great relationship person you are. You can get people to tell you things that they wouldn't tell other people. If you're trying to get a job on the street, you want to talk about your analytical and your quantitative skills. Same person, different parts of the story. And so that's why I wrote Strategize to Win. Now, let's talk about Lead to Win. I had no aspirations of writing a leadership book. In fact, I thought leadership books should only be written by those who were sitting in the C-suite. However, in the fourth quarter of 2018, I had the aha moment that we were in a very different leadership context than the one that I had built my career in. If you were building your career in the late 80s, early 90s, 2000s, you were of intentional leadership is authenticity. Your authenticity is your distinct competitive advantage. Nobody can be you the way that you can be you. And the day that you received your current opportunity, somebody else didn't get the job because you were the best person for the job. So the last thing any of us should ever do is to submerge that which is uniquely you. Every time that you try to speak or behave in a way that is inauthentic to who you really are, that's when you create the competitive disadvantage, because you're using valuable intellectual capacity that you could use to really hear what your colleague or your clients are saying, but they are not articulating. Valuable intellectual capacity that you could use to demonstrate that quick twitch response, and valuable intellectual capacity that you could use to co-create with that person on the other side of the conversation. As quiet as it's kept, I've learned after 3.5 decades on the street that most people are not comfortable in their own skin. So when they see someone who is comfortable and confident in their skin, they will gravitate towards you. They absolutely want some of that. Your success, in many cases like mine, depends upon your ability to successfully penetrate relationships. Well, the easiest way to penetrate a relationship is to bring your authentic self into that environment. When you bring your authentic self into that environment, people trust you. And trust is at the heart of any successful relationship. This was a very interesting pearl for me to acquire. As you heard from the dean, I am a singer. But when I first started in this business of financial services, I didn't want anybody to talk about the fact that I was a singer. I wanted to be known as a no-nonsense, hard-driving, analytical, quantitative investment banker. I'm not here to sing and dance, boys. Let's not get it twisted. Didn't want anybody to talk about that until I saw the client's reaction. Because of course, against all of my objections, my colleagues would take me into the room and say, oh, this is Carla Harris, and this is our capital markets banker. We're here to pitch this IPO. But what you really ought to know about Carla, she's an amazing gospel singer, and she's at Carnegie Hall and Radio City and Lincoln Center. And I'm there rolling my eyes until I saw the client's reaction. Oh, you're a singer. Oh, I so admire people who can sing. And I personally love to sing, but my family won't let me sing in the shower. And maybe you can talk to my daughter about how she integrates her love of the arts and her academics. And there we were, having a 15-minute meeting before the meeting. Are you with me? The meeting before the meeting. So when I sat down to pitch, they heard me with a different ear. They saw me through a different lens, because Carla Harris, the singer, was allowed to be in the room with Carla Harris, the banker, so I naturally differentiated myself from the other 5 bankers that would come in there and pitch that same IPO that afternoon. So now, whenever I go into a new situation, I bring Carla Harris, the investment banker, I bring Carla Harris, the prayer warrior, Carla Harris, the investment manager, Carla Harris, the singer, the writer, the speaker, the mother, the golfer, the football fan, I bring all those Carlas to the table. Because I don't know which Carla will be the one. Will connect and allow me to own the relationship in a proprietary way. If you are choosing to sit in the leadership seats, it is that lightly. Because before the pandemic, I would argue we were all running around so much that we failed to say, who am I today versus who I was in 2012 versus who I was in 2019. And if you haven't done it recently, please take the time to say, who am I today? Because there isn't a person on the planet that hasn't been impacted in some way by the COVID-19 crisis. There isn't a person on the planet that hasn't felt some kind of way witnessing environment. Is to understand that we're all multifaceted. There's an intellectual you, there's an argumentative you, there's a frivolous you, there's a funny you, there's a quiet you. We're all multifaceted. So embrace all the facets. Now the third key to bringing all of you into any room, now you can relax. Now you can relax and walk into any environment and you can literally feel the energy in the room. And you can decide which part of you will authentically connect with that person on the other side of the conversation. The 15 people in the boardroom, or the 1,000 people that are in the audience. You can literally be free to feel the energy, to say which facet of me will authentically connect. The mistake that young professionals make is that they believe that in order to be authentic, they have to have all of them on display at the same time. You do not need to have all of you on display at the same time. You can decide in the moment, is it you the teacher? Is it you the listener? Is it you the speaker? Is it you the funny girl? Is it you just a quiet, pensive, kind of person? But you will know how to connect if you leave yourself free enough to feel the energy. And that's the counsel that I have been given to leaders to help them bring their authentic selves. And it's imperative if you want to be a powerful leader in this environment, because millennials and Zers, if they do not believe that you are being authentic as you stand in front of them, they will not follow you. The second pearl of intentional leadership, trust. Innovation is the dominant competitive parameter across all industries. I can't think of one where it is not. Which means, as a leader, you're going to be going into territories unknown. And none of us have ever lived on the other side of a pandemic. None of us have ever seen the kind of social unrest that we've seen, because most of us are, not that much older than 60 years. And 60 years was the last time we saw what we saw in 2020. So in order for you to do whatever it is you need to do as a leader, you can't do it alone. You're gonna need somebody else's intellect, somebody else's experience, and access to somebody else's network in order to successfully prosecute any endeavor. And in order for your teams to give you the benefit of their best thinking, allow you to leverage their previous experience, and allow you into their network, and everybody has a network, they have to trust you. So the question is, how do you build trust? And the way that you build trust is that you simply deliver over and over and over again. I want to challenge you right now to think about the people in your personal life that you trust. Maybe you're thinking about the people that are taking care of your kids. They are going on and on about how much they love running. So I'm thinking, how can I deliver on that? Oh, by the way, people will always tell you what they value. They will always tell you what they value. You need only ask the question and create the space where they can define that which they value, and then you can strategize on how you deliver on that value proposition. So now the client has said they love running. So I say, oh, by the way, here's an article I think you might like. It talks about how you can increase your endurance. Oh, have you tried the new Nike shoe? I understand it has unbelievable support. I have a friend at Nike. They can walk you through the attributes of the shoe. Oh, you're running in the Berlin Marathon? I have a group of friends that are already over there. Let me connect you so that when you land, there's a community that you can engage with. Two most important words in today's business ecosystem, community and engagement. Oh, by the way, do you have a good orthopedic surgeon? Every runner needs an orthopod on speed dial. Four things. So by the time I asked for a piece of business, the client said, you know, I wasn't going to give Morgan Stanley any of this business, but Carla, you've done A, you've done B, you've done C, you've done D. So maybe I'll give you guys a little piece of this transaction. And ladies and gentlemen, that's all I needed was a little bit of an opening. I can wiggle my hips and land and expand. But more importantly, they trusted me enough to give me the shot. The third pearl of intentional leadership is creating clarity. I just made the point that innovation is the dominant competitive parameter, which means we are going into territories unknown. Yet, if you're going to be a powerful leader in today's environment, your job is to create clarity, even when you cannot see. It is your job to define what success looks like. For when you define what success looks like, then I believe that the people on your team are motivated and inspired to deliver beyond that which has been defined. Because I believe that's how we're wired as humans. But when you fail of intentional leadership is creating other leaders. If there's no other lesson that I have learned after 35 years on the street, the way to grow your power is to give it away. Is to give it away. If you are choosing to sit in the leadership seat, you must be disproportionately focused on creating other leaders. For that is how you amplify your impact in the organization. If all roads lead back to you, then by definition, you will cap your success and the organization's success because you're one woman, you're one man. So you must be intentional about making sure that you give those things that allowed you to cut your leadership teeth to other people so that they can cut their leadership teeth. You want to selfishly think about yourself as a leader, as a kingmaker or a queenmaker. The more people that you help to be successful, the more powerful you will become. But you have to be intentional, because if you are like me, a natural executor, you'll just keep executing. I get my joy from taking it off the list. And I'm one of those people that have capacity. I may already have a long list, but you ask me if I can do that? Yep, I got it. Yep, I got it. And there were two things that helped to advance me on my own leadership journey. The first is that I heard my chairman and CEO say that he focuses on only those things that the CEO can do. If there's anything on his list that anybody else on his team can prosecute, it should not be on his list. Translation in my mind was, Carla, just because you can doesn't mean you should. Leaders, just because you can doesn't mean you should. The second thing that helped me on my leadership journey is I had to invoke a little bit of baseball imagery. I said, Carla Harris, the outstanding capital markets banker that has executed hundreds of capital markets transactions, that's generated millions of dollars of revenue for the firm, she's standing on first base. But Carla, the visionary leader, the person who can take a blank sheet of paper and create 3 products that are becoming the foundation of our future growth strategy, the woman who can truly see opportunity amidst chaos, the woman who can motivate and inspire people to deliver beyond that which they thought they could do, and the person that can transform a culture amidst a tumultuous context, she's standing on second base. Well, Carla, you can't get to second base with your foot still on first. You have to be willing to let it go. And most of us hold on to all those things that allowed us to get promoted. Newsflash, when you have moved to a seat of leadership, the organization is no longer looking to you to produce that which got you there. And remember, what got you to that influential leader? You must be intentional about diversity. Now, I know the room that I'm in, but let me just say this. It will not just happen. It will not just happen. We are all vulnerable to unconscious bias. I don't care who you are, where you're from, where you are educated. We are all vulnerable to unconscious bias. And I'm going to give you an example of my own. I just told you that I created the Multicultural Innovation Lab in Morgan Stanley. No other firm on the street had done such a thing, and nobody internally had done such a thing. 18 months into creating the lab, I looked up and my entire team was women. All women. It was multicultural, but it was all women, not an ounce of testosterone. And I knew immediately that I had a gap in my go-to-market strategy. If you have homogenous thinking at your decision-making table, you will have a gap in your go-to-market strategy. And it will, in this context, you must teach your teams how to innovate. You must help them develop the muscle of innovation. And how do you teach people how to innovate? You must teach them how to fail. If people are deathly afraid of failing, they will never reach far enough to truly innovate. And I would argue that millennials and Zers have not had the opportunity to develop that muscle of resilience the same way those of us who are boomers or older Xers. When we were growing up and we competed, there was a first prize, a second prize, a third prize, and if you were lucky, an honorable mention. Millennials and Zers have grown up in an environment where everybody gets a prize to play. So they have not had the practice of failing and getting up and failing and getting up in the same way. And as a leader, it is your job to teach them how to do that. Now, how do you teach people how to fail? You celebrate the failures. You celebrate the failures. When somebody on your team has taken a risk and it hasn't worked out, yes, you must be authentic and say this was a huge mistake, but you must be productive and constructive in your responses. If you have a markedly adverse reaction, then please know that the person will never take that risk again. And those who are directly and indirectly witnessing that conversation, they will not take those risks, and it will now compromise your competitiveness in the market. So you should say, oh, Dan, that was a huge mistake. That may cost us this quarter, but let's all give Dan a hand because he took the risk. And because he took the risk, we now have the following 3 pieces of information that will allow us to prosecute the next try in this way: productive and constructive. The 7th pearl of intentional leadership is inclusivity. I get the question from CEOs all the time: how do you show up as an inclusive leader? Intellectually, I understand it, but how do you walk the talk? If you want to be seen in your environment as an inclusive leader, you simply solicit other people's voices. Solicit other people's voices. The next 4 times that you bring your teams together, try this. Here's the problem that we're trying to solve today. I'll get us started in this conversation, not because I'm the smartest person in the room, but because I'm the most seasoned, not old, most seasoned person in the room. Now, Abby, I'd like you to add on to this argument. Now, Bob, I'd like you to add on to what Abby has said. Now, Damon, I want you to play devil's advocate. How would you blow up this argument? Where are the gaps? What's the other side? And Chandra, I want you to add on to what Damon has done. What have you done? You've done 2 very powerful things as an impactful, influential leader. The first is that you said, I see you. You invited each of them into the conversation by name, which means you have to engage enough with your teams so that you can authentically invite them into the solution-making process by name. And who doesn't value being seen by the boss? The second most important thing that you've done is that you said, I hear you. Not only have you invited them into the conversation, but you invited them specifically to support or refute the argument that's on the floor. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Everybody values being heard. Everybody values being heard. When you say to anyone, let me repeat what I think you said. Oh, by the way, did I understand you to mean why you're saying that? The person is thinking, wow, she heard me. Whoa, he was listening. And you have just, you must be willing to call a thing a thing, no matter how bad the thing might be. And I would argue the worse the thing is, the more important it is that you give voice to it. Because when you fail to give voice to it, now you compromise your authenticity that you've been working so hard to demonstrate. You also